What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Must start and avoid running backs for week 5. I'll be taking a look at each game this week and going over the backfield situation for each team. Remember that tomorrow's video is the flex start-sit video, so put your questions in the comment section down below, and I'll go over as many of those as I can. If I don't get to your specific question, then you can see my exact rankings as well as a bunch of other stuff at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. All right, let's get things started off with the Thursday night football game in Rams at Seahawks. The Seahawks are currently 1.5 point favorites with the total fairly high at 49.5. I believe that's the second highest total on the week. On the Rams side, it's the same as last week. You have to start Gurley, but know that he's capped at around 15 to 16 touches, and he'll need a touchdown to be worth the start. It happened last week, and with this total, there's a good chance he scores again. But this isn't the same Gurley we're used to seeing. He's going to need to score that touchdown to pay off. On the Seahawks side, Penny should be back this week. We don't know for sure, but every indication is he should be returning. If you have Penny, then I'd wait a week just to see how much they use him. I really don't think they're just going to throw him in there enough for you to use him even in the flex spot. So I'd keep him on the bench this week. Carson has had major fumbling issues, but again, like I said, I don't think they bring Penny in and give him like 40-50% of the snaps right off of his injury. So you're starting Carson, but keep an eye on the snap counts moving forward. We've got Buffalo at Tennessee next. Tennessee is 2.5 point home favorites despite Josh Allen being doubtful. Honestly, I don't really think he plays this week. We're going to have to see if he can pass the concussion protocol, but I don't think he plays. And the total is extremely low at 38.5. This game projects to be the lowest scoring game on the week. On the Buffalo side, a lot depends on Singletary. Can't really know at this point if he's going to play or not. If he's out, you can play Gore in the flex, but if he's back, then Gore's a pretty thin play. I don't think you should be playing anyone in the backfield if Singletary's back this week, because I also don't think Singletary will be viable since he's coming off of a hamstring injury and they're not just going to throw him out there. I think they hold Singletary out because they do have a bye in week 6, so it doesn't really make sense to rush him back if he's not 100%, which I don't think he will be. On the Titans side, start Derrick Henry every week, especially as a home favorite against a Bills defense that ranks top 5 against the pass, so they're much more likely than usual to lean run heavy, and they already lean run heavy regardless. Atlanta at Houston. Now, Houston is a 5 point home favorite, and the total is set at 49 points, meaning that the Falcons are only projected to score into the low 20s. Ito Smith returned last week from his concussion and resumed his normal role of around 40% of snaps. He's not getting enough volume to be viable, but he is getting enough volume to hurt the value of Freeman. Freeman did have 8 catches last week, but they were down by a lot, and he's typically only going to see that like 2 to 4 range. Freeman is a mid running back too, and is better in full or half PPR leagues. But I'm not thrilled about Freeman because Ito's back, and again, he's only going to be seeing around 50 to 60% of snaps. For Houston, this is theoretically a game that sets up well for Duke Johnson. The Falcons typically allow a lot of running back receptions, but they just aren't using Duke Johnson enough as a pass catcher, and Hyde is getting most of the early down work. So it's difficult to trust Duke, so I think you have to put him on the bench. And then you'd say, oh, well, maybe they're going to use Hyde more as a pass catcher this week. He had 6 targets last week, but he only turned him into 6 yards, and we know that he's just never proven to be good in the receiving game, so I just doubt that they really take advantage of the matchup and throw to the running backs. So for that reason, I'm really not pumped about starting anyone in the Houston backfield. Baltimore at Pittsburgh is next, and Baltimore is a 3.5 point road favorite with the current over-under at 44 points. On Baltimore, it's the same thing as every week. The only running back you can start right now is Ingram, but know that he needs a touchdown to be worth it. He's playing around 50% of the snaps, and he doesn't see really any work in the receiving game. For Pittsburgh, we saw them shift to more 2 running back sets. They clearly don't want Rudolph throwing the ball that much, and they rarely trust him to throw the ball downfield, so they're implementing a game plan built on short passes and runs. It's probably not going to work against the Ravens, but I guess we'll see. Samuels played on 46% of the snaps last week, had 18 touches, which was 10 carries and 8 receptions on, I believe, 8 targets. They played the Bengals, though, and no one was really expecting them to just come out and run the Wildcat like they did, so I'm sure that caught the Bengals off guard. The Ravens now know that this is a possibility, and so they are going to prepare to stop that. So I think you're starting Connor, assuming he plays. There are reports that he's going to be limited throughout the week in practice, so we'll see, I guess, or check on Sunday. But if he's out there, you're starting him. I honestly think I'd still bench Samuels as long as Connor is playing. Like, obviously, if Connor is out, Jalen Samuels is a must start in all formats and all league sizes. But if Connor plays, this is a tough matchup, and although he might have a few receptions and maybe get there if he scores a touchdown, you're relying on a touchdown on a team not projected to score that many points, and he is still going to get less than half the snaps, so it's not a great play if you have him. New England at Washington is next, and the Patriots are 15-point road favorites, with the game currently having a 43-point over-under. You don't start players against the Patriots, especially when those players are already fringe starters to begin with. On the Patriots side, I just don't see how you could feel good about starting Sony Michel. They're not giving him any targets, so you're gonna need him to have 15 or so carries, at least 15 carries really, and you're gonna need him to score. The thing is, the Patriots are projected to score around 30 points, so there's a pretty good chance of him scoring, so you can use him in the flex. Just know, dude's not going to catch any passes, so he has to score the touchdown. Burkhead's a little bit more difficult of a call. He was questionable going into last week, and he didn't really play all that much. You can start him in deeper leagues, but he should probably stay on the bench in 10 or 12 team leagues unless we get a report that he's 100% good to go and they definitely want to use him, but I don't think we're going to get that report, so he's more of a fringe starter. You can start James White. This is not a game like last week where we knew he was going to be involved in the receiving game. This one sets up much more differently. They're probably going to try and get the receivers more involved, get Sony Michel involved, but the thing is, they're going to score around 30, so he's got a good chance of scoring, and he still is going to be used in the receiving game. So he's a nice start. Cardinals at Bengals is next, and the Bengals are currently 3-point home favorites with an over-under at 47 points. For the Cardinals, start David Johnson like every week. This is a great matchup for him, and it's a very winnable game for the Cardinals, which is not something you can typically say. On the Bengals side, start Mixon. The Cardinals do sell out to stop the run, but they aren't always successful in that, and this is a big pace-up spot for the Bengals. So Mixon should see a lot of snaps, and he should have a good chance of scoring, and he should be around 100 total yards. Bernard is not someone you can really start unless Mixon goes down. Jaguars at Panthers. Panthers are 3.5-point home favorites, and the current over-under is just 41 points. Last week showed why we were trading for Leonard Fournette and why we're starting him every single week, even while he continues to be unlucky with touchdowns. On the Panthers side, you're starting the running back one every single week. Bucks at Saints is next, and the Saints opened as 5.5-point home favorites. The line has already been bet down to 3.5 points in favor of the Saints, and the over-under has been bet down to 47 points. Ronald Jones is an interesting flex play this week. I really don't understand why they won't use him more in the receiving game. He has 3 targets on the season, and he's turned those into gains of 18, 41, and 12, and he's had a few plays called back due to penalties that were really big plays. He ranks 16th in rushing yards despite a 9-yard week, and he's averaging 4.7 yards per carry. He does look to have finally taken over Barber as the lead back, and if he takes any more snaps away, he's going to be a weekly starter. I have to decide between starting him, Miles Sanders, and Will Fuller as my second flex spot this week, and although I think I'm going to start Fuller for the upside, I think there's a good case to be made for Jones. On the Saints side, They gave Murray a few more snaps last week, but not enough to be worth starting until Drew Brees comes back, and then you're obviously starting Alvin Kamara every single week. Next, we have Jets at Eagles, and the Eagles are currently 13.5-point home favorites with an over-under of 44.5 points. Sam Darnold is going to practice this week. We don't know 100% as of right now if he's going to play, but if he's going to play, then I don't fully understand the 13.5-point spread. For the Jets, regardless of what happens, you're starting Le'Veon Bell. For the Eagles, it is always nice to have a running back be a home favorite by 2 touchdowns, but the Jets have a really strong run defense, so this isn't the best spot for Eagles running backs. Sproles saw almost no snaps last week, and so it's really turned into a 2-man backfield between Sanders and Howard. Sanders has been great when they've gone to him, but they refuse to give him more than half the snaps. It could happen this week, as I think the game will be a little bit closer than Vegas projects it to. And with, like I said, the Jets being so good at run defense, well, they don't really use Howard that much in the receiving game, so it sets up better for a Sanders game. Ultimately, we're going to have to wait and see. I would personally not play Jordan Howard, and I do have Sanders in the one league, and I will not be using him in the flex. Like I said, I'll probably be starting Will Fuller over him. Bears at Raiders is next, and the Bears are 5-point road favorites, even without Trubisky. The over-under for this game is just 40 points, so it should be the second lowest scoring game on the week. And this game is actually in London, so even though the Raiders are technically the home team, they're not really. David Montgomery has now fully taken over the backfield in Chicago. He was in on 70% of snaps last week and was given 24 touches, which makes the third game in a row with 16 or more touches. And while he hasn't posted a spiked week yet, it's coming soon, and there's a decent chance it happens this week. The Raiders do rank as a slightly above average run defense, but they did just lose Vontaze Burfict, and they're closer to average than above average. Montgomery is the only Bears running back that I would start. Cohen just isn't getting involved enough in the offense to be worth it. On the Raiders side, Jacobs doesn't play enough snaps and isn't involved enough in the receiving game to be worth starting in games they're going to lose, especially when they take on the Bears. So I wouldn't start any Raiders running back this week. Next, we have Vikings at Giants, and the Vikings are 5.5-point road favorites with an over-under of 45.5 points. For the Vikings, start Dalvin Cook as always. For the Giants, Gallman did have a great game last week, but it was against Washington, so take that with a grain of salt. The Vikings are a little bit better than Washington is. He's still a flex play, especially since he did look good in the receiving game, and he's clearly the goal line back. Just don't expect that sort of production again, because the Vikings are pretty good on defense. Next, we have Broncos at Chargers, and the Chargers are 6.5-point home favorites with a current over-under of 43.5 points. On the Broncos side, Lindsey and Freeman are both running back 2s. They essentially split drives and are both involved in the receiving game. Being 1 touchdown underdogs isn't great, but the Chargers aren't a matchup you're looking to avoid for running backs. On the Chargers side, I haven't seen any concrete reports on how much they intend to use Melvin Gordon, but this is a matchup that the Chargers should do good on the ground. The Broncos just got gashed by Leonard Fournette last week, and they're home favorites. Continue to start Austin Eckler every single week, and if it looks like Gordon might have a real role, then you can use him in the flex, but we're going to have to wait and see as we get closer to Sunday how much they intend to use him. Next, we have Packers at Cowboys, with the Cowboys being 3.5-point home favorites and the current over-under being 46 points. This one's really easy. You start Aaron Jones and Ezekiel Elliott in all formats. Next, Colts at Kansas City. And Kansas City is currently 10.5-point home favorites with a current over-under of 56.5. A monster over-under for this game, and it's easily the highest over-under on the week. Mac exited Sunday's game with an ankle injury, but they said he wasn't medically ruled out, so he should be able to play this week. It's never ideal to play a 10.5-point road underdog running back, But if Mac is out there, then you're starting him. On Kansas City, Damian Williams is expected to miss another week, so you have McCoy and Darrell Williams splitting the snaps again. Both are flex plays this week since they're both running backs getting snaps on Kansas City. McCoy is the preferred option, but both are viable in the flex. The final game of the week is Browns at 49ers on Monday night. The 49ers are currently 3.5-point home favorites with a current over-under of 46.5 points. I'm very surprised that this game is projected to be close. Landry is questionable with a concussion, so we'll just have to see if he passes the concussion protocol. The 49ers are home. They've clearly been the better team so far this season, and they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this one. So I figured the spread would be closer to 5 or 6 points, but hey, what do I know? On the Browns, it's the same story as last week. This is not an easy matchup for Chubb, but you're starting him every week, and he can crush in any matchup. For the 49ers, I believe Coleman should be able to return this week, but we're going to have to wait and see. If he plays, then Jeff Wilson is expected to be a healthy scratch, and it would mean that Breida, Coleman, and Mostert would be the running backs for the 49ers, which is kind of a mess. I would want to see how they split the workload under that scenario. It seems like Coleman would take over what Wilson was doing with a few carries, few receptions, and then being the red zone back, but then would also take a few more carries away from Mostert and Breida. Maybe not right away since he is coming off the injury, but that would be his expected role when everyone's healthy. For this week, we'll just have to see what beat reporters are saying, but I'd expect Coleman and Breida to be more like flex plays, with Mostert being a lower end flex play, more of a deeper league play. If Coleman misses again, then Breida and Mostert would be flex plays, with Wilson being that lower end flex play in deeper formats that's really just touchdown or bust. So that should be everything you need answered at the running back position this week. If you have multiple players that I listed as starts or a bunch of players I listed as sits, then either ask your question in the comment section, I'll try and answer it on Friday's video, or just look at my rankings at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. But that's the end of this one. I hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting that like button? And if you're new here, how about subscribing to the channel? But thanks for watching.